Today we've got Liz from Kennesaw State with us to talk a little bit about her studio and also some of the work that her students have been doing with the students at Clemson University and some of the collaboration that the two universities have been doing together. So Liz, can you tell us first a little bit about your second year with your studio and what you've been doing this year and how last year led into this year?
Okay, yeah. So last year we started with our second year environmental technology class, and this will be now our second time teaching it. And we brought in as a collaborative venture our industry partners, which was Metromont. And they were really amazing because, especially during COVID, we had an issue with being able to bring so many students with 6 feet distancing into the wood shop to be able to make their molds and to be able to pour concrete. And so we were able to go to Metromont to their manufacturing plant on their vibration bread that like was spread out and had 98 students flanked on each side to be able to pour concrete. And then they were able to work on the vibration bed and they really saw how it really came together. And it was really great for the students, not only because of it was a great learning experience, but also because they had been kind of like, because of COVID, they had been behind closed doors and virtual. This ended up being a true on hands experience where they learned from industry partners. PCI, our director, came, and there were a variety of different groups that ended up participating and working with the students. And so now what we learned there, we're now doing that again, and we're going to pour this Saturday before Thanksgiving. And we've had a little bit of an increase in enrollment, so we'll probably have about 120 students pour concrete. And so for the second part, which is the form liner, to be able to do that type of workshop, what we're going to do, actually we're doing it tomorrow with Clemson, is 18 of my students are going to drive up to Clemson, and Architectural Polymore is going to come down from Philadelphia, and we're going to do a hands-on workshop between the two students, the two courses. And so what's really interesting about that is they're more advanced studios. So they're students that are doing comprehensive integrated studio where they really have to do wall sections and do a comprehensive building and start to work out the facade panelization and begin to understand how it's really detailed. And so we're going to have a pour of a facade that students are designing and do the rubberized forms. And how we're going to do it in terms of a collaboration, and then I'll back out how we've done it in the earlier in the semester, is have one student from Kennesaw and another student from Clemson work together to do their workshop and collaborate together. And then each student is going to present their facade panelization to each other and really have like not only networking and students learning from each other, but also have a collaborative review where multiple of them are going on at the same time. And so I think it's going to be very engaging. It's going to be a lot of energy, and learning one from the other, I think, is going to be really interesting. And I know my students are really, really excited to be going up there and to be learning from it. And so earlier in the semester, Carlos's students from Clemson came down to Kennesaw and they presented their work to my students. And then we all collaboratively installed a exhibition of their work. So they brought their presentation boards and physical models of a project where they analyzed Tadeo Ando's work, who's renowned for cast in place concrete, but they looked at it and redesigned it as if it was precast. And how would you go about designing those buildings if they were precast as a case study? And so they introduced that type of methodology to my students. And then my students went around in groups. There were 4 or 5 of them at the same time, as well as 2 faculty, and Ray Clark, who's our Georgia Carolinas director, participated and went around and gave input to all the students. So, and then they left the exhibit up for 2 weeks. So now I have the opportunity to put everything in my car and then return it when we go tomorrow. But what was really interesting about collaboration is each student is beginning to learn from each other, and each school teaches slightly differently or has a different focus. And so we're beginning to learn from each other, looking at one particular material, which is precast, which is really fascinating.
That's great. What kind of gave you and Carlos the idea to do this kind of collaboration?
We came up with the idea at first, started talking about it at the PCI convention in New Orleans, and then further refined it when we were at the professor seminar.
I love to hear that. We love the professor seminar, and one of the things we really try to do is create opportunities for the professors to work together.
Yeah.
And so I love to hear that something like this came out of that. You also said that you had an uptick this year in registration for your class. How's that going with more students?
So now in my studio, instead of 12 and 14, I have 18, and it started with 20. And then two dropped out. And so it's interesting, but I think last year, being our first year doing the PCI grant, it really helped inform what best ways to teach for students to be able to learn more and go further in their design. And next Friday, I'm having what I'm calling a two-thirds review, and I'm dividing the students in half. So rather than having one review where one goes after the other, I'm going to have two reviews going simultaneously. So it'll be like 9 and 9. And so I've invited, and Ray Clark has helped me invite some industry partners to come in. So someone from Metromont is coming, an engineer that has expertise in precast, and we're going to have four reviewers go for each group, so eight altogether. Um,
Well,
to be able to go through and give student a lot of feedback. And what I was able to do, because Carlos, I sat on Clemson's reviews last year, which is the same year, um, and he was able to share with me some successful examples from his students, and I was able to share that with my students prior to them starting, so that they have an awareness on how to present precast, how to look at facade panelization. We've had several talks. So Ray Clark, again from Georgia Carolinas PCI, came and spoke. Marshall Walters from Architectural Polymers in Philadelphia gave an online talk to both Clemson students and KSU students 3 weeks ago, before we have this workshop tomorrow.
anything else that we haven't talked about that you think is important to talk about in terms of, especially in terms of the collaboration between the two schools and collaborating with your local partners?
I think it's the local partners have it's been refreshing from my perspective, because I've been in collaborations before in the studio between faculty and faculty, and the idea of learning from a faculty from another school has been really strong. But also the industry partners add so much to the mix. The be able to actually go to the plant, tour everything, pour things on site. They have the ability and have been generous enough to take all 98 tiles that we've like poured, and they deliver them 2 days later on their flatbed truck.
Wow,
Which that in itself is
that's
like an
nice.
event, for students to come and watch that, and to get to know all the different layers of people that work at Metromont. Has been like really interesting, and I think eye-opening for our students, to the point where one or two of them actually accepted an internship last summer and have continued through the year working with them. Because what our students are doing in E-Tech during this tile surface project is they're really pushing parametrics and fabrication, CNC milling fabrication, to kind of push the idea of surface and what you can do. And Metromont is starting to get in that realm as well. So our students are able to actually communicate with them with an expertise as well. And so I think that that dialogue is really interesting in terms of the future of the profession.
Good, that's great. Well, I'm really excited to be able to share this with the other people in our industry and then some of the other professors as well. So, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with everybody when we come visit Kennesaw State next spring
Yeah.
for the professor seminar. So, thanks for taking some time to talk to us today.
Yeah. And we really
Okay,
appreciate all your contribution to our education. It's really helpful and has advanced the way we look at things and design in the world.
good. All right. Thanks, Liz.